I'm Fiona Bradley, the director of the Fruit Market, a free public space for culture in the centre of Edinburgh in Scotland. It's been wonderful to collaborate with the Guggenheim Abu Dhabi on the loan of this important painting. It's doing some really hard work in the exhibition, bridging a gap between the very abstract work and the more narrative work, showing that it's possible to make a beautiful painting, a painting with such a beautiful surface, about a very hard idea. We're excited to have made an exhibition of the work of Howardena Pindell, an African-American artist and activist who's been working since the late 60s, early 1970s. We're excited to bring this work to Scotland and to the UK for the first time because although she's been working since the late 1960s, her work is fresh and relevant, exciting, hard-hitting, and really useful for making us and our audiences think about what it is to be alive now. In putting the exhibition together, what we were interested in doing was showing the breadth of Howardena's career and also showing the points of focus, the moments when her painting and her ideas and her activism came together. This painting, Tarot Hanged Man, is particularly important in the exhibition because what it does is, although it was made in the 1980s, in 1981, it has extraordinary contemporary relevance. Tarot Hanged Man was made in 1981, just at the point where Howardena Pindell was beginning to put her own story more into her work. Tarot in some way is a hinge between the more abstract work of the 70s and the more political, personal, narrative work of the 1980s. It has this beautiful surface. It's incredibly highly crafted, with the artist bringing together the circles, little circles of paper and the extruded circles of paint, and also using other things that she could get her hands on, glitter, things which were round about her, craft material. These came from this moment when Howardena was using her autobiography in her work and assembling, sort of trying to put a sense of self in the work and assembling images that were important to her. At the centre of it is the image of the hanged man, the tarot card that gives the painting its title. In the context of Howardena's work, that card takes on an incredible resonance.
Hello, I'm Naomi Beckwith, and I'm the Jennifer and David Stockman Deputy Director and Chief Curator at the Solomon R. Guggenheim Museum. Howardena Pindell was born in Philadelphia and over 5 decades has created a vast body of work that includes photography, video, installation, sculpture, experimental video, but most importantly, she's known as a painter. She really came into her own when she started experimenting with templates, like this object I have here, layering this over a raw, unprimed canvas and extruding paint through it, spray painting it over it to create these beautiful objects of scintillating dots, almost pointillist circles of color all over the canvas. Eventually, she even started creating works from the holes that she punched out of templates like this, attaching those back onto the canvas so that no longer was a painting a flat surface, but one that had material and texture all over the surface. From the dots, she also added powder, glitter, other kinds of materials such as photo transfers, plastics, toys, so that her work moved between painting and sculpture. And even as you as a viewer would move past the painting, it would scintillate and light would dance over it as if the work itself was its own moving image. Pindell's work, Tarot Hanged Man, is one she created as part of her memory series. This is a body of work that she began to create after undergoing a massive brain injury in 1979. In order to reconstruct memories that she lost due to this amnesia and to this brain injury, Pindell began to take images and transfer them onto the surfaces of her many canvases that already had this wonderful texture and materiality on the surface. And just like memory can be disjointed and fade away, you see on these works the ways in which Pindell has began to stitch together the materials in the painting and suture works back to each other just as she tries to reconstitute her memory.
My name is Howardena Pindell. I'm a painter primarily, but as an artist I've worked in video, installation, just in a number of media that fit the project. So, but I'm basically a painter. I was struggling to become more abstract, and then I started using templates that I got at an architecture store that no longer exists called Charette. And I started drawing ellipses and circles, and it kind of went from there, where everything was obsessively about the circle. Well, it's a scroll format, and I cut canvas in strips, vertical strips, and then I sewed the strips together. I'm still cutting canvas and sewing things. And then I gessoed it to stretch it. And I found sort of odds and ends of images that I could do a polymer transfer of. So that's what all those little sections are. They don't add up to anything, but they're just little abstract, images. And then you have the hangman image. Now, it doesn't look like the tarot card. The hangman is a card from the tarot deck that apparently, I don't know how far back the tarot goes, but in the 12th century Italy, the hangman was considered a traitor. However, if you reverse the card, it's more about taking your time, making a decision. I was a passenger in a car accident. The sewing involves kind of mending myself, sewing my head back together. I had a concussion. And I think the image also involved putting things together. It's like they don't quite fit anymore. The reason why I was involved with texture, when I was a child, my parents had reproductions of art around. But then in the guest room, they had a Van Gogh, and it was of a wheat field with crows. I believe that's the one. But it was one they manufactured that had a raised surface to mimic the texture. And I would get on the chair, I was really little, I would get on the chair, then get on the desk and run my hands over the reproduction. And I think that's why texture became so imprinted in me. If I'm going to do something, I really want that. Also, my adding like powder and glitter and stuff reminds me of African art, African sculpture that, for what reason, whether for good or bad, it will have blood on it, it might have earth, who knows. So it was this kind of sense of accumulated surface. And I don't even know how much I was aware of African art at that point. I know at one point I was feeling that I would love to have, because it was when I was more into tarot, that I would love to have studied African art in terms of divination, because there are certain objects, that are used for that. And I'm glad I didn't, because after the head injury, I'm too sensitive. I do not need to know in advance,